You're controlled by other people's opinions, even if you don't admit it. If you're serious about taking control of your behavior, subscribe, because most people live like this their entire lives and never realize what's actually controlling them. You say you don't care what people think, but your actions say something else. You adjust how you speak depending on who's around. You explain yourself when you don't need to. You hesitate before making decisions. You hold back your real thoughts, not because you don't have them, but because you're calculating how they'll be received. That's not independence. That's control. And it's not coming from you, it's coming from outside. You're not acting based on your own judgment. You're acting based on how you think other people will react. That means your behavior isn't yours. It's shaped by approval. And once your behavior depends on approval, you lose control. Because now your actions are filtered through something unstable, other people's opinions, which change constantly, which you don't control, which you can't predict. So you adapt, you adjust, you perform. You become a version of yourself that feels acceptable, not necessarily real. And over time, that becomes your default. You stop asking what you actually think and start asking what will be accepted. That's where the problem begins. Because the moment you stop trusting your own judgment, you start outsourcing it. You look for signals, reactions, feedback, approval. You let other people decide what's right, what's acceptable, what's valuable. And the more you do that, the weaker your internal standard becomes. You stop developing your own clarity because you're always waiting for confirmation. That's why you feel uncertain, not because you don't know, but because you don't trust what you know. So you check, you look around, you hesitate, and that hesitation becomes your pattern. Now every decision takes longer, every action feels heavier, every move feels risky. Because it's not grounded in you, it's grounded in how it might be perceived. That's control. Not physical control, not obvious control, but psychological, subtle, constant, and most people never break out of it. Because it feels normal. Everyone does it. Everyone adjusts. Everyone filters themselves. So it never gets questioned. But that doesn't make it right. It just makes it common. And common behavior is exactly what keeps people stuck. Real control begins when your actions are no longer dependent on external approval. When you make decisions based on your own judgment, not based on how they'll be received. That doesn't mean you ignore reality. It means you stop being controlled by perception. You say what you think, you act on what you believe, you move without needing confirmation. And at first, that feels uncomfortable. Because you're removing the safety net. You're no longer checking if it's acceptable, you're deciding. That's where strength starts. Not in confidence, but in self-trust. Because confidence comes after, self-trust comes first. The ability to act without needing reassurance, without needing validation, without needing agreement. That's what separates someone who is controlled from someone who is independent. One waits for approval, the other moves without it. And that difference shows up in everything, in how you speak, in how you decide, in how you carry yourself. Because when your behavior comes from you, it becomes stable. It doesn't shift based on who's around. It doesn't change based on reactions. It stays consistent. That's what people feel. Not confidence, not dominance. Consistency. And consistency only comes from internal control, not external approval. So if you want to break out of this, you don't start by trying to be confident. You start by trusting your own judgment. Even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it's not validated, even when no one agrees. You act anyway, because every time you do, you take control back. And every time you don't, you give it away. That's the choice. And it happens constantly. In small moments, quiet decisions, subtle adjustments. That's where control is lost, and that's where it's rebuilt.